Hi, I'm Margaret Read MacDonald, and I'm going to tell you a story that my grandpa, Parley Garfield Read, told me. I call it Parley Garfield and the Frogs. Now, my grandpa, Parley Garfield, when he was a young man, he was courting my grandma Ella. He had to go down across the creek to her farm to see her at night. And in the summertime, that was no problem, because in the summer, down in southern Indiana, where we come from, the creeks run dry. You can walk across on the flat rocks and not even get your feet wet. And in the winter, it was no problem, because down in southern Indiana, where we come from, in the winter, the creeks freeze solid and you can slide across on the ice. But, whoa, in the springtime, when the rains came and the snows melted, that creek that was bone dry in the summer could be rushing full of water over your head and very dangerous, and you couldn't just wade in. But fortunately, my grandpa could talk frog talk. He could. He'd go right down to the edge and he'd say, "Howdy, visit." He'd call to the little peepers that lived right by the edge. "Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit." And they'd call back and tell him that where they lived, it was inkle-deep, 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 inkle-deep. "Oh, no problem," said Grandpa. "I'll take off my shoes and socks." He'd wade in up to his ankles, and he'd stop, and he'd call to the bigger frogs a little deeper. "Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit." And the bigger frogs, they'd call back and they'd tell him where they lived, it was knee-deep, 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 knee-deep. "Oh, no problem," said Grandpa. He'd roll up his pants legs and wade on in. And then he'd stop and call to the bigger frogs out a little deeper. "Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit." And they'd call back and tell him where they were staying. It was belly deep, belly deep, belly deep, belly deep. "It's okay," said Grandpa. "I want to see her real bad." He'd wade in up to his waist and get all wet. And then before he went all the way out, he'd call to the big old granddaddy bullfrog that lived right in the middle and ask him out if it was there. "Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit. Howdy, visit." And like as not, that old granddaddy bullfrog would call back and tell him the truth. He'd say, "You better go around. You better go around. You better go around." Poor Grandpa, he had to go back, walk a mile down to the covered bridge, cross over, and come back to see Grandma that night. My grandpa told me that story for the truth. I don't doubt it. Do you?